Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first episode of the Cheesy Cinema Club. I'm your host, Cheesymanfredo, aka Alfredo Morales, and with me today, co-hosting, is my friend Protus. Say hello, Protus.
Hello, everybody.
There he is. All right, and what movie are we going to be talking about today, Protus?
So today we're going to be talking about the 1970 Czechoslovakian surrealist horror film known as Valerie and Her Week of Wonders.
Yes, and we both just finished watching it. Well, it's been like 2 days since I've seen it, and Protus, I think it's been like a day for you, right?
Yeah, I saw it yesterday.
All right, word, and it's kind of a little fuzzy in my head. Also because the movie is very well. Before we go into real in depth about the movie, we're first gonna this part right here. There's no spoilers. All right, so we're just gonna give you our basic opinions. It doesn't spoil anything about the movie. I like the movie, but it's not for everyone. It's for like a special kind of person.
Totally.
Yeah. If you don't mind seeing underage boob, like this movie, if you're very bothered by underage boob, don't watch this. You can skip out on this movie. It's not gratuitous underage boob. I'd say it's as classy as 1970 could be with its boob, right? But yeah,
I have to say, going into this movie, because I have kind of a funny history with this movie, where I actually found out about it through an Of Montreal song. Of Montreal is a very good band that I recommend, but there's one song, I think it's called Saint Exquisite's Corpse or something like that. He references the movie, and he literally just says Valerie and Her Week of Wonders, and I was like, oh, what is that? And I looked it up. And the description that I read, this is like over a decade ago when I first discovered it. Mm-hmm. The description I read had me to believe that this was like borderline, like pornographic, like there was like intense sexual like activity and violence. And actually finally watching this movie, I was honestly shocked at how tame it all was.
It was very tame. I would say a little hot take, a little progressive even, you know. I feel like the messaging in the movie was kind of a very progressive message for its time. And I mean, I get if anyone feels like this movie's like, no, this movie's garbage, it's trash, it's disgusting. I get that. I feel like a lot of people are just having knee-jerk reactions. You know, I mean, I'm not saying your knee-jerk reactions to a movie are invalid, but I feel like the movie has a lot going on if you look past that, but aren't like bothered too much. Like I said earlier, there's the main character is a young girl who's 13, and you do get to see her boobs and her ass, but it's not like gratuitous. It's not like how Michael Bay films Mila Kunis, you know, right?
That's a really funny comparison because the way that so like Michael Bay in the Transformers movies, that almost feels more wrong. Like it feels more gratuitous than how I forget the actress's name. I should have looked it up. Valerie.
Yeah. Go on.
Yeah, how Valerie in this movie is portrayed, where it's like, her name is Jalsalva Shalarova.
They're all Czech. It's not even a real place anymore.
Yeah, I wish I actually knew more about Czech cinema. The kind of the way that I really came to enjoy this movie was from the horror lens, because I'm a really big horror fan, and I really like that like kind of art housey horror the best. Any movie that's like really opaque with its symbolism, and like this movie has very clear symbolism. I felt
I feel like it's a little okay if you're an idiot and you watch this movie, you're literally not gonna know what's going on. Because this movie, like, kind of like, the plot isn't really much of a plot. It's more like a series of events that we follow our main character go through. And there is this antagonist, but the movie isn't really about defeating the antagonist.
No, not really.
No, the antagonist is... the antagonist I would say is a bad person, but like I think getting rid of the antagonist isn't the main goal of this movie is trying to portray. What are you saying, Protus?
So yeah, that's a really good point. That there really isn't like a very clear cut. Like I mean, you could say that the constable.
Oh wait, you know what? Wait, hold on. Beforehand, here on out, let's just do the spoiler section. I mean, this is the spoiler section now. So you haven't seen it?
Yeah.
Go ahead. It's all on YouTube. That's where we saw it. It's the Italian dub with English subtitles, but it's on YouTube. You can go and check it out. It's the whole film. All right.
I didn't even realize. I thought I watched the original Czech, but maybe not. It was actually released by the Criterion Collection a few years back, which the Criterion Collection are just a phenomenal resource, I think.
They really do bring to light like a lot of movies that would probably be lost to time. But
like, who would care about this movie except like me?
Yeah, some like weirdos like us, you know.
So yeah, before we do go into spoilers proper, I would say I do recommend this film if you do like a more esoteric horror movie. If you like horror movies that are weird and don't really explain everything and kind of...
Yeah, they ain't gonna explain shit in this movie for you. You're gonna have to piece together a lot of the things.
Yeah, I'm really glad I actually took notes because there was a lot that I was confused about early on. Yeah. And I was looking up words like, they keep saying polecat. They keep referring to an animal called a polecat, and I had to look that up. Apparently that's like the European version of a skunk. It looks like a ferret, but it secretes like smelly liquids like a skunk.
Now there's a spoiler right there. But anyway, I recommend it if you really like movies that have like a certain kind of aesthetic. This movie has like a very kind of like, you know, like I feel like it's kind of on purpose where they do the whole idyllic like European town.
Yeah.
Like filled with Christians. This feels like when a white nationalist wants to go back to tradition, this is what they have in mind. This would be their perfect village, which goes in hand with the symbolism of what the movie's trying to say about this specific era. But anyway, yeah, that's the non-spoiler recommendation. We're gonna go for spoilers here on out.
Yeah, so I think maybe just kind of like a brief synopsis. I mean, it's actually kind of hard to do a brief synopsis because so much goes on.
You want to try to explain it, or should I try to explain it?
Sure, I'll try and give my like most brief, the briefest that I can. So basically, this movie is about a young girl named Valerie who she lives with her grandmother in it seems like a pretty nice villa.
They never show you an establishing shot of what the building looks like.
Yeah.
They never really they don't really show you how close anything is to anything, really. But you have like vague ideas like, oh, one of the windows leads out to kind of like where they keep the hens, and another window you could see right into like the town square, and the church is we know the church is relatively close, but there's shots of people like walking in through the fields to go to church, so it's like, wait, how far is the church from where she lives?
It kind of adds to like this dreamlike feel that the whole movie has, where characters are just kind of in setting, like a new setting a lot, and it's not always about like what would make sense for them to be, but like I think of the scene when they're eating that like whole suckling pig with the I think his name's Garcian, the father, the like
the church
adulterous father.
Yeah.
And in that scene, they're just like by a lake, and like they seem like they're very far from the town. But yeah, it's very interesting how they just kind of keep jumping to locations. It's very beautiful. I love the cinematography of this movie.
Oh yeah, it's a really good looking movie. I always love it when like a horror film also focuses on like cinematography, visuals, and like aesthetics.
Same.
Yeah, because I feel like there's a big notion with that horror films are kind of like cheap and easy, and you just pump them out. You don't have to be a good filmmaker to make a horror film, and it's like you don't gotta be a good filmmaker to make any film, really. But
totally,
like horror kind of has this label of being cheap, but this film doesn't feel cheap. It feels very like this is something you could study and talk about. I kind of like how. Did you notice how there's just like a horse just walking around?
Yes, I love that.
There's this gray horse, like in the scene you just said where they're like eating by the lake. There's just like a horse like back there, and I think she knows the horse. Like, doesn't she refer to the horse at one point? Like, sometimes the horse would just be walking in the middle of the street or just in front of the door to her house. It's just be like wandering. Like,
I think it's her horse.
Is it? Because they own horses, right? Yeah, like they have. It's like a whole farm. They have like like they got like help. They got people who actually run the farm too.
Yeah. That was something that I was kind of confused at first, and it's not really, maybe from like the time period, and like if you were Czech, seeing like the house she lives in, you would immediately be able to identify that she's wealthy. But it's pretty clear that this is like a pretty big villa that they live in. They have several servants, and that's where like we see all of these like blonde, younger blonde women, and there's a scene early on where they're all like bathing and also like making out.
Yeah,
like
they have a fish and they keep like in the opening,
so weird.
The opening of the blouse, they keep passing the fish on, and I'm like, is this kind of like a sex toy metaphor or something? Because there's a lot of scenes where like Valerie seems like she has that like look of like, oh, I wanna be where the commoners are because they seem to be enjoying themselves, unlike me, a rich kid, right? Like,
yeah, I think it's funny how much this movie has like voyeurism as a theme. Like, there's so many times where Valerie is not present to a scene, but she's like either peering through a window or sneaking around, and like it's like she's not really connected to this world.
Mm-hmm.
At least that's kind of the feel.
She could kind of just wander in and go through it at all times. I mean, there's also scenes where like the bad guy of the film will be like scheming or talking to other people, and she's like also watching them. I think one of my favorite scenes is like when Valerie goes to like, there's this weird like human-sized bird cage like in the field, and she goes there to go leave a dress for this one guy who's been helping her. As we'll talk about him later, but she goes into this bird cage. But while she's in there, she sees that by the side, it looks like it's like one of the servants who helps at the farm is like getting fucked by this guy from town. Like he's
like the Chad check man.
He is like the Chad. I think he also works at the farm too, because it looks like he's helping him. Yeah, he's another like farmhand and they're banging. And meanwhile, this like whole like congregation of girls, specifically virgin, they make it very clear that all these girls are virgins.
The maidens. Yeah,
they come through. Like I think the thing is that they're from a missionary that's passing through, right?
Yes, there was. So it's a little confusing initially because Valerie is like, this is really early in the film. Valerie's talking with her grandmother, and she's like, "Oh, the actors are coming into town today," and then there's also a wedding procession that comes in. So
it's funny.
They all seem to kind of be connected.
Yeah, it's very interesting. But it's also what's really kind of like, also kind of interesting is that so I know some Spanish, and Spanish kind of sounds a little bit like Italian because some words are like direct, like sometimes we use the same words, right? So in the subtitles they say performer, right? But like what they actually say in Italian is a comediante, which is like comedians, right? And I'm like, do they mean like? Well, they say actors in the subtitle, I think. But like, do they mean like circus performers? Is that what they mean by like comedians? Because they're like funny? Because they're very jolly. There's also this reoccurring. There's a lot of reoccurring characters, and one group of reoccurring characters I do like is the reoccurring like band members.
Yes.
Yeah, there's like a guy. There's like these like 4 or 5 guys who just play the same instrument, and they're like in every like, not in every scene, but every time there's like kind of like a group shot with like a lot of people. They're there. I kind of like how it feels like a cast of characters, you know, like this movie could have easily had like every character be one off, but like no, they seem to be very intertwined with each other. Like later on there's like an orgy under like her house, and the band members are there too, like playing during the orgy. So it's like,
that's great.
Yeah, how aware is everybody of everything? Because it feels very like okay, I guess if you read any descriptions of the movie has vampires, And
Yeah, I was shocked actually. I was not expecting vampires.
I mean, if you look at the poster of the movie, or if you look at any screenshots of the movie, a very thing you see in screenshots is the picture of the constable, or he goes by several names.
Richard. Yeah, he's known as the Constable, the Monster, Richard. I think they refer to him most as the Constable.
He looks like Darth. He looks like what's his name? He looks like Palpatine, like from Star Wars. He looks like an early version, and because he wears he has the black hood, and he has a gross monster. He has these kind of very gross teeth, and he's always smiling, and he's clearly bald and creepy looking, and he's like a vampire, but he's not like a traditional vampire. He doesn't have fangs or anything, but once he takes off the hood, you see that his ears are pointy, but they're not they're not pointy because the shape of his ears are pointy. They're pointy because there's weird hair growing at the top of his ears that look like they're pointy ears. It's so...
I didn't even notice that. That's so funny.
Oh yeah, if you go back and look, it's like hair. It's not like skin that makes them pointy. It's just hair. It's so weird. I feel like maybe Czech has a certain design to their vampires, and that's in their mythology, vampires have hair right there. But anyway, yeah, if you ever look... Yeah, go on.
To me, it reminded me a lot of Nosferatu.
Oh yeah,
he looked like he was kind of like a dead ringer for Nosferatu, and I'm just doing the most minimal amount of research possible. Apparently, this was based off a novel that came out in the 40s actually. So from that, I have this is just me speculating. Maybe the writer of the novel was really inspired by the original
Nosferatu.
The original Nosferatu design, and maybe that was just something they carried over into the film, but.
I mean, Nosferatu is unironically the objectively the best looking vampire, and I'm not... Fight me, don't at me. Unironically the best looking vampire, and I like how the constable even though now you would probably think the constable's design is very generic. He also looks kind of like Death from Bill and Ted's.
He does.
Yeah, doesn't he?
That's so funny.
He has these. Yeah, he has these kind of goofy teeth. He's. I mean, I'm not. Maybe if I was younger, or maybe if I was in the 70s, I would think he looked creepy, but he's very goofy looking.
I think the creepy thing about at least his introductions, this was very early in the movie when he's introduced, at least from the window scene when they're looking down at the wedding procession. Mm-hmm. The way he covers his face with a fan, and then shows his face and smiles creepily, he's looking directly at Valerie, who's 30, 40 feet away.
Yeah, you can see him through the window. Yeah.
Yeah, and then he covers his face again, and he changes his shape. So he just he's kind of just this really unknowable terror. He could be anybody sort of thing.
He's he's like a shapeshifter. I guess spoilers, when he changes his face, that's implied to be later on you find out that the face that he shapeshifted into was what we presume Valerie's real father looks like, right? Because they keep going back that the constable is Valerie's real father, or not really. We just don't know, right?
Yeah.
Which is I kind of want, because it's everybody. It's okay. So there's also another reoccurring character who's kind of the ally of Valerie, because Valerie is being targeted by the constable. We're not sure why, and even at the end of the movie, I'm not too sure. But I do have my theory that it's not just the constable. Kind of the whole town itself is wants Valerie, and I feel this is my interpretation. I feel it's because of her virginity, right?
Yeah.
So the movie kind of starts the opening of the movie is just different shots of just Valerie hanging out in the fields, enjoying herself and whatnot. And when she walks...
Being innocent.
Yeah, being innocent. And then when she walks by a flower, blood drops on the flower. And at first that's kind of weird, but if you think about it, the movie's... that's just the movie telling you that she's on her period. And assumed to be her first period. Right?
Yeah, so, she mentions to her grandmother saying, oh yeah, I'm a woman today. Because she's and her grandmother instantly knows what she's talking about. And this kind of goes into, the earrings and, there's this kind of repeated symbol of these earrings that she's not supposed to wear because I guess they're. I think the movie takes a hard stance against like, well, it doesn't like the characters of the movie, all the religious ones. They pretend to be so against like all these immoral things
Yeah,
and like
but they're really the bad person. Like there's like one scene, where like a priest who tries to like rape Valerie in her room, and I mean it doesn't happen because she has like these earrings, or it's like pearls
they're
or
pearls.
yeah, they're like pearls, and I don't know what the mythology is with like pearls, but they seem to be her like they seem to be her always kind of get out of trouble kind of like item, right?
Yeah, they're like one of the more fantastical elements of this movie, where everything else is like, at least the horror
Besides
elements
like
are pretty like
besides the vampires,
scary and ruthless. She has these pearls that her well I'm yeah yes actually the vampires are kind of silly, but yeah, the pearls seem to put her in like a death-like sleep, and yeah, we see her use them like 3 times, and yeah, it's just interesting. Yeah, I don't know. Something that I kind of discovered playing the Witcher game, or actually I've only played Witcher 3, but I'm like going through the books, is Polish mythology and Polish like folklore is so different from the folklore that we mostly get from like the Western perspective. That's normally like the German and the English, and so maybe there are some really weird Czech references to like folklore and fairy tales that are just totally going over our heads.
Yeah, most likely. I mean, this is like a book from the 40s adapted into a movie in the 70s, and there's probably like a lot of things lost in like translation. But it's like I keep getting confused. Are the earrings pearls or like because it seems like she also is using the earrings to get out of trouble as well, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I'm not entirely sure. Yeah, because it looks like there are pearls dangling from the earrings, but she uses it. I'm pretty sure she uses the pearls like 3 times. So, we see Eaglet, her lover / brother
/ maybe brother. I'm gonna guess he's her brother. He's also like her kind of sole ally against the constable.
Yeah, maybe we should let me try and do like a little brief synopsis, so if anyone's listening to this, they're not
we're like jumping back. Well, the movie itself is also very confusing in some parts.
Oh yeah, it definitely is. Like, it's intentionally vague, these are the kind of movies that I love. I'm an old artsy fartsy guy. But so yeah, we kind of we established like Valerie lives in like a villa with her grandmother, Elsa, which I thought was funny. Her name is Elsa, and she's like clearly a younger woman is playing this actress. Like, they just make her hair look weird and they make put white powder on her face.
She's like very like white. I thought I guess just to detract from the synopsis for a second, there's a lot of characters who have like a lot of white powder on their face besides the constable, because the constable is clearly like a monster, and at first I was like wondering like what's like the symbolism with everyone who has just like white powder in their face. Maybe it's kind of like because they're dishonest, because her grandma is pretty dishonest too, as we later find out.
Yeah, she's a bastard. She's like one of the worst characters in the movie from like a moral standpoint.
Yeah. She's a little bit more real than like the vampires, and I guess spoiler, she becomes a vampire, but
which is awesome. We'll get to that in a minute, but there's a scene with her that I absolutely adore. But so basically, she finds out that we just get like a lot of backstory throughout the movie about her past, and we keep getting like little glimpses, and there's a lot of misleading info because her grandmother's kind of like lying to her about a lot of stuff. But Valerie's had these run-ins with this man named the Constable, who's like a shrouded, shadowy figure, and he has a helper named Orlik, which I think is his name in Czech.
Yeah,
his actual. Yeah, it's translated to Eaglet, which is a weird name.
That is very weird. That is very weird translation.
Like, I don't know if there's like a meaning to that. I don't know if Eaglet is like a position of like what's it called, like a rank in a church or something, because the movie's so theologically based. There's so much going on. But so yeah, basically we get introduced to so the important thing that you mentioned is Valerie has her first period, so she becomes a woman,
Mm-hmm.
in the words of the movie.
And
And yeah,
and we gotta assume that's kind of why the constable is targeting her now. You know.
yeah. And it's like very explicitly like he's kind of introduced himself to her on the day of, I don't know if it's her cousin or if it's just a family friend, Hedvika, who is another young woman who's being married to a just kind of old bastard kind of type.
Yeah,
He's a
he's like a
wealthy
property owner,
landowner.
right? Yeah, yeah, landowner. And
Uh,
she clearly, like, when we first see her, she doesn't look happy about it. And
oh no, she's miserable.
yeah, and Valerie feels bad for her. Like, Valerie seems to be the only person who feels bad for her. Like I think when she tells him, like, oh, she's getting married, when her grandma tells her, oh, you're getting married to a landowner, she's Valerie says something like oh, I feel bad for her, something like that, right?
And then to Elsa, that's like the goal. As for Elsa, being like married to a wealthy man is like all she could ever hope for.
Right, exactly.
Even though she seemingly did.
Kind,
at least live. She lived a comfortable life, at least.
There's like a lot of like weird things like implied with her and her relationship to the house and the church and whoever actually owns the place they live.
Yeah,
which we don't really get into deep into. Like she has a relationship with the constable that like predates like what happens in this movie, right?
Yeah, it's pretty much, they seem to have had a very long history. I think, if I recall correctly, I think Elsa pretty much had the same thing happen to her that happened with
Valerie.
With Valerie, yeah, where the constable like found her and used her for her youth, basically.
Right.
Created this like unhealthy codependence where she's like obsessed with him and his power.
Mm-hmm. Like we assume they implied that Constable's been around for like years, because he's like an immortal, right?
Yeah, and throughout the movie, Eaglet, who is he's a young man. He's definitely supposed to be like a teenager as well. I think he seems
a little bit older than Valerie.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Mm-hmm.
But he's very flirtatious with her, and he's constantly trying to meet up with her, but he's always staying at arm's reach. Like he kind of knows that there's like a forbiddenness to it. I don't know.
Yeah,
that was my impression.
There's like I mean, yeah, he seems to be very very protective over Valerie, because he's like the one who gives her like the heads up, and like because the movie kind of opens up with like him, like Valerie's like asleep in her like little greenhouse, and he climbs into the top opening and comes in there and steals her like earrings, which it's implied that he returns them or something, because she still has them like the next scene, right?
Yeah, cause it's really funny. Like, yeah, the very next scene, she's like in the water. She's like bathing alone, and he sneaks up behind her and puts the earrings in. And I was really impressed that he was able to get both earrings in first try at the same time. This man has incredible precision. Because I don't know if you've ever tried to put an earing in.
No, I haven't. I haven't. I assume it
is hard. It's really hard. Yeah, I just thought that was really funny. I don't know why that stuck out to me. But
I feel like he also kind of wants to, because like I feel like the big metaphor in this whole thing is like everybody wants to fuck Valerie, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like or like Eaglet, he also wants to do it, but with the veneer of like kind of helping her, because like later on there's like a scene where I think Valerie just like straight up like denies her, because after she finds out that they're related, it's kind of very awkward, even though they're very like together. It is very awkward, and she doesn't feel very super comfortable about it, and she denies Orlick, and then Orlick leaves and gives her a letter and something, and the letter kind of felt very like damn, Valerie, we could have lived happily ever after, but you had to go reject me, so bye, I'm sorry. It felt very
that was really like I was very unsympathetic to him after that scene. I was like,
It,
"Fuck this guy!"
yeah, it
Like,
seemed like sure he was helpful, but it seemed like he kind of just wanted to do it to get his dick wet too, right? Which is the whole movie is all about the bad guys are people who want Valerie because of her like virginity. They want to like fuck
yeah,
her, right? But the movie's clearly about. I feel like the movie's trying to say that don't don't worry about the virginity of younger women. Like they're the ones who should be in charge of their virginity, not older men. Father, like all the guys who want to bang her are like older than her, right? And it's like this movie feels like it's like older, anti patriarchy almost. You know, that's like the
yeah. I would
vibe I'm
definitely
getting.
say that's the thing. It's kind of I don't want to sound like presumptuous, but looking at like feminist works from this movie's going to be 50 this year, 50 years old. I definitely consider this movie to have at least feminist elements to it,
Mm-hmm.
and you can point to a lot of things that are like, well, it doesn't really totally succeed on its message because of X, Y, and Z. But I think for the most part, it does give Valerie a lot of agency,
Mm-hmm.
and at least like the movie is with her, and she has a lot of scenes that she kind of decides what she does, and she rejects certain characters, and so I think it works in a lot of ways. Like you can just kind of brush away some of the things that are a little weirder about it.
I mean, it's kind of. I mean, it's like a lot of things that are like that were older and were considered to be progressive, and we look back and there's like kind of things that are kind of like a little off. Well, you know, they did this thing. Like I guess, some there could have been less underage boob in this movie. Not gonna lie.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a really weird element. Yeah, it's kind of important to mention, I guess, like that the actress that plays Valerie herself, I believe at the time of the movie she was 13.
yeah, she was 13, and I heard that her mom was also on set, which is okay. I mean, it's good to know that she wasn't being, as far as we know, she wasn't being abused in any way, right?
Yeah.
Um, which is
It is also kind of hard to go by different standards because like this was a Czech film and like the Europeans are very different with how they consider sexual themes in film, especially nudity in particular.
they're very much the
It's
opposite of us. Like, while in our movies, like in our movies for kids, there's like gratuitous violence. Like over there, they don't like gratuitous violence, and they're okay with like having sex and nudity. Over here, we're like, nah, we don't fuck with that because we're fucking scared of sex over here.
yeah, it's really funny. It just creates these really funny elements to me, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so
It's where I get. Do we Yeah, I really
okay,
I
so
really
yeah, back
sidetracked
to
your synopsis. Where were we at?
so yeah, basically, we mentioned them already, but there's missionaries that are coming into town,
Mm-hmm.
and one of them is staying with Elsa and I keep saying Elsa, Valerie's grandmother and Valerie,
Yeah.
and he's an older man who is they have like a really nice dinner with, and it's really just funny. I think this movie has a lot of fun with like poking fun at the church because they give him he's supposed to be like a missionary, like a father,
Yeah.
and they give him this like super lavish meal, and they're drinking like tons of wine, and then of course
He-
later on he ends up trying to
Right, Valerie.
rape Valerie.
I mean, it's implied later. I mean, earlier on in the during the dinner scene, it's implied that he's a rapist because he talks about how when he was a
Yes.
missionary in Africa, they converted like an African lady inside their tent, which is implied like they raped this African lady and then they fucking threw her off, right? Because they said they were gonna bring her back,
Yeah.
but they never did. And
Yeah, and the way that he frames the story too is like, oh, and then we brought her into civilization. She succumbed and she sinned against the sixth commandment. And I had to look that up because I was like, which one? And apparently it's different. It's different based on whether you're Catholic or if you're Lutheran.
mhm.
And if you're Catholic, it's murder. And I was like, there's no way this woman murdered someone. It's Lutheran. In the Lutheran tradition, it's adultery, which makes a lot more sense. But I just thought I had a funny moment looking that up.
Huh. That's So like wait.
But yeah,
Like so wait. So was the African lady married? So and they raped like a married woman, and then it's like they made her commit the sin, or like
I think adultery in this case would also just refer to any sort of like inappropriate sexual conduct.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, and of course this is a priest saying this too, so he's gonna paint the story to be like she was the one that sinned, it was her fault, and clearly it's like I think that's a nice little comment on like colonialism in this movie and saying like all these bastards.
It's very like the missionaries aren't painted in a good light in this movie. This movie is very like anti-Christian. Like even at the end, if
it basically is like a pagan celebration at the end.
Wait, we'll talk about the ending in a second. But after that, there's also a scene where like I think Valerie's in the town square, and she's like looking for a certain location, and she meets like the constable again, and she doesn't know it's the constable at first, even though he's fucking in this. Yeah. He's in his iconic like shadowy grab. Like how did he not tell this guy was the constable? And he even sounds like him too. And he tells her where he's at, and then he kind of like kidnaps her and takes her inside his weird dungeon library underground basement kind of thing to show her through a peephole that her grandma is like getting like fucking self-flagellation in front of the priest, right?
Yeah, because she wants to fuck the priest.
Yeah, there's like this weird exactly.
That shows like how the priest is like ultimately a creep because he doesn't want to have sex with Elsa, but he wants to have sex with Valerie.
Yeah, like he's a real like piece of shit. And like I guess that, you know what? I didn't even realize that right now I think about it, that the priest did reject her grandma because he wants to like fuck Elsa, and that kind of goes in hand with later what happens to Elsa. And but anyway, one of my favorite scenes is a really funny scene where like the constable is forcing Valerie to look for the people and see that, and she's like no, and then and then Orlick Eaglet comes out and grabs the ladder that they're using and pulls it away, and then the constable like he does this very cartoony like he falls backwards.
It's like slow-mo too. It's so funny.
Yeah, it's I like how the constable isn't very like super 100% immune to anything really. Like he could get hit, he could get hurt, he could get tripped and all that. There's also one scene where like Orlick is like tied up by a fountain with chains, and then Valerie like Valerie frees him.
But he's not actually like in chains.
Yeah,
like she just slips his hands.
Yeah, they're very escapable. Like the fucking the bracelets, the iron bracelets are very big holes, so he could easily pull out his hands. He was just pretending. And then after he frees her, they have like a brief, like I forget what they talk about, but like it's a brief explanation. And then out of nowhere, these like 5 guys who are assumed must be part of the missionaries like have whips, and they want to like whip Orlick because he escaped his chains, and he runs off and he escapes. They go into a house, and when he closes the door, like the way these guys with whips like rush to the door, it's kind of like when you run towards a wall and you don't want to hit it, so you kind of like jump when you make contact, you like jump up because you're like surprised at the wall or something.
Yeah, it's like it becomes a slapstick movie at that point because they're like chasing after him, and then the second the door closes, it's like a video game. They all give up and they just start walking away.
Yeah.
It's like they lost his sight. He's out of their sight, so he doesn't exist anymore.
It's there's a lot of, the movie has like a lot of moments like that where it's like it's so you know, I guess like how you said like a dream, like the whole movie feels like a dream, and there's some parts that feel more like a dream than other parts, right?
Yeah, like the one you mentioned, the part where she is in the birdcage and she's watching. I think this happened at like around the same time. Mm-hmm. She's watching just like one of the maids or the servants just get fucked by this big beefy Czechoslovakian Chad.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's like while that's happening and she's peering through this big birdcage, a procession of missionaries just comes through, and every time one of the men enters, he looks angry, and anytime a woman enters, she covers her face and then like tries to rush by. Like just really bizarre movie.
I feel like that's kind of like saying maybe it's like maybe sex is good, sex is fine, when it happens between two like consenting people and they agree. I mean, clearly, like in that scene, the woman is like consenting to like having sex with this guy. I guess the only problem, like now, would be like an issue. You can't have sex in public, but but like this is kind of like how the church like condemns like sex. Because actually, later after that scene, when they're inside the church and Valerie is there too, because she kind of joins all those like maidens as well. The constable, who's like, I think implied to be in charge of the missionary as well, or not, because he seems to have some sort of connection with the missionary. It's never established because he rolls into town like three different things roll into town at the same time. It's like performers, the missionary, and the constable, right? Like they all rolled into town around the same time. And and going back to the scene I was talking about, where they're like in church and like they're looking up at the balcony where the constable's there, but he's like in blackface. You remember that? He can't. It's very hard to see. Yes. Because I was thinking at first.
Yeah, that was weird.
Yeah, at first I thought it was like, oh, is this like his cloak is covering his face and it looks like black because it's shadowy, right? But no, it looks like he's like, they just took his like white makeup and they made it like black, but it's not like blackface that he's trying to imitate like a black person.
Yeah,
it's more like he's just trying to kind of hide his visage. Like, here, I got the picture of it.
Yeah, it's really weird. Yeah, so and he's in the pulpit too. So he is like, I think you're right that he is like the one who leads this like group of missionaries, which kind of brings the whole idea of like that the church, which I guess in this movie would be the Lutheran church, is like run by corrupt monsters,
literal vampire creatures.
Which kind of does go. We didn't mention one really, really important thing is that this movie was made in a communist country.
Oh, nice.
So naturally, you would expect something like religion would not be treated with a lot of respect, and throughout the movie, religion is pretty vilified.
Oh yeah, I feel like
it's organized religion, at least.
Yeah, or because Valerie uses kind of like the pearl things are like spells, you know. Like, they're there to, like, help her escape and whatnot. And that's like a pagan thing, you know? It's like, maybe a kind of not return to tradition, but return to values that actually help you. Because it seems like Christianity is there to just help a certain few, like the older men in power, you know? Also, I think, I think the constable is using the makeup just to disguise himself from, like, Valerie. Because it's pretty easy.
She has seen him.
It's pretty easy to fool Valerie. She's not. I would say she's not the smartest, but not everyone in this film is like not everyone in this film is a genius. A lot of things in this film are very face value with the characters.
They're just simple country folk.
Exactly.
But so going kind of back into the synopsis, there's. The next big like development that happens is Elsa finds the constable and she's like, "Oh my God, you're back! I loved you." All this stuff about like, "Please grant me eternal life. I know you've mastered it." And then he's like, "All right, I'll give you eternal life if you give me pretty much everything you own in your house." And just to like make a connection to a little later on in the film, they didn't explicitly reference this in any other way, but one of the letters that Eaglet sends to Valerie is on the it's a playbill for the play Dr. Faustus, which is the original name of like the Dr. Faust, or like Dr. Faust, where that's the whole like sell your soul sort of thing.
Yeah, that's like the classic story, right? Like any.
So yeah, if she has like a bit of a Faustian bargain here,
right? Which kind of like she kind of pays for it, because I guess spoiler, she dies, but. Well, she doesn't really. No one really dies in this movie.
That's true. That's very true.
Because like it's implied that so the constable turns Elsa into a vampire, and they she, in order for her to look younger, and by look younger, all they do is like take away her white face paint and they give her a wig. She sucks the blood. What's implied, because it's implied that she sucked the blood from what's the woman who got married? Hedveke. Yeah, they sucked her blood while she was about to bang her gross, ugly bastard husband.
Yeah, that scene is probably one of my favorites actually. The part where it's like they're married, they're in their wedding hall, and it's empty. Like they're the only people there. It's her, Hedveke, and her husband,
Hmm.
and she just looks miserable.
Oh
And then
yeah.
it goes to like where they're going to consummate their marriage in bed, and then the constable just sneaks up behind her and like uh puts his cloak up, and then I thought initially it was like a body switch. Like I thought that uh Elsa was going to become her and get to live out like that
That
young
that's what I
life
thought
again.
too. That's what I thought
But
too.
then,
Uh,
yeah,
then later
that
you
is not what
see,
happened.
yeah, later, like under the house, you see that Elsa's in the coffin, still alive, but now she's like very now she has like the same gross teeth that the constable has, and it's like,
Yeah,
but then later, I think a couple scenes after that, we after like Orlick saves Valerie from another thing, or like because there's like this kind of like a certain repetition to this movie where like or like
she keeps saving him.
yeah exactly like or like does something for her so she could avoid the constable, and then later Valerie finds Orlick like in some sort of torture device. Like the first like at the time at the town square when he was like locked up, and the second time was like when he's like tied up by a waterfall and he's just
Yeah, this is like brutal. Like he could have actually died if the water level, or if he dipped his head below the water too long.
I
I thought that was pretty cruel.
I think that's what's implied, that eventually the water level in that lake or whatever, like the not
The
that rate,
stream.
yeah, the stream. It wasn't, yeah, it was kind of roaring, but not enough to kill you. But like if he was just there long enough, I guess the implication that he'll get tired and just drown himself. But
Uh,
but Valerie like saves him, and that's when like that's like one of the first scenes where like, or maybe is that the first time that or like tries to like share a kiss with Valerie? Because I feel like that happened earlier, like in the hen house too, right?
I'm not sure. I think it might have been the hen house first.
There are
I don't remember.
there are scenes where or like tries to like slip it in, which happens like every time like after he gets like rescued or like tries to like get a quickie. But Valerie's all like, "Oh, slow down there, partner. Whoa, hold up there, buddy."
Uh, yeah, but so this is like one of my other favorite parts of the movie is Elsa comes back young, and not only is she young, but she's wearing pants, which I thought I underlined that in my notes because all the women in this movie always wear dresses, and Elsa comes. She's actually wearing like a equestrian outfit, like she's a horse rider,
Oh, word.
and she comes back. She has beautiful red hair, and she's young now, and Valerie's just like, "Who are you?" She's like, "Oh, I'm actually your distant cousin. I just came in on a train." So we were talking about uh, Elsa comes back younger. She says that she's Valerie's sister and she wants to, or sorry, her cousin, distant cousin. She's like, "I want to stay in this house." This is also what you mentioned where she rescues Eaglet from the stream.
Mm-hmm.
She says, "All right, Eaglet, you can live with me now." So now there's this kind of conflict where Eaglet and Elsa have these interactions that are like really, like you can tell that Elsa pretty much wants to kill Eaglet.
Yeah. Elsa's not a big fan of Eaglet. Also, like it's funny. Like I feel like so when Elsa comes back and she has like her new identity to try to fool Valerie, it seems like Valerie's like kind of cool with it, or like either it's like Valerie can't tell this is like just some rando, or like Valerie maybe just lets it happen because maybe she wants to see what would happen next or whatever. Um, but we're not too sure why Valerie just kind of lets a stranger come into her house and be like, yeah, sure, why not? Just stay, I guess.
Yeah.
I guess you could have this room.
She's just really aloof like the whole movie. Like she
Mhm.
doesn't really even though she does have agency in some scenes, she just kind of lets things happen, which I kind of relate with, like, because I like to just let things happen in my life.
I feel like she lets things happen as much as every other character kind of lets things happen. You know,
Yeah,
it's not that she's not dumb. She just kind of has the same level of intelligence as everybody else in this movie. I would say she is a little bit more clever than most. She's
definitely.
not too caught up in like the religion like everybody else is. Um, and then after that, like I
Talk about the clock tower scene.
yeah, like I was wondering what room that was. Like, what's all these weird cogs and shit? It's like their attic or something. And she ties up like Valerie and hides her in the attic, and she has like a pearl necklace, and it's like, is she like knocked out when she's put on like the pearl necklace?
You know, and that's another one of those things that like it must be some sort of like magical item that the movie just expects us to know about.
Yeah, because like pearls seem to be like a reoccurring magical item, and I don't know what the symbolism for the pearls are. Maybe something to do with virginity. I don't know, but she's like she puts them on to like her cousin puts it on Valerie to like knock her up and tie her up in the attic where she like does wake up, right?
Yeah.
And I think like she's trying to kill her with the chickens or something. I don't know, because she later on she said she has killed Valerie, even though Valerie's still alive. But like I can't remember what exactly she was trying to pull out the attic to make it seem like Valerie was dead, or maybe she.
So
yeah, go on.
It's kind of weird. So what happens in this scene is Valerie like very easily breaks out of the like rope that Elsa tied her in.
Yeah, it's not too hard yet.
Yeah, it's kind of like comical actually. But then she peeks down, and she sees it's actually with the horse in the stables.
Mm-hmm.
Elsa approaches the Chad the Chad check guy that we keep talking about.
Yeah.
And basically like fucks him and kills him. She murders him, and then she goes right upstairs to where Eaglet is staying, and Valerie's still just like in the clock tower watching this, and she proposes sex with Eaglet too. So you're like, oh shit, is she gonna try and seduce and kill him too? But all it takes is Eaglet saying, no, I don't want to have sex with you.
Mm-hmm.
And then she goes away. And then Eaglet comes and saves Val from there. I don't know if you remember, this is the part where he has two guns, and he points both of the guns like through a small hole in the wall and shoots them into the room.
Wasn't there like no real context to those? Like,
nope.
Wasn't Elsa also in that room too? I remember.
Yes,
she was.
Elsa was in the room, and she went in her coffin.
Yeah.
So it wasn't even like she was a danger. Like he just empties two shots.
I guess because he was kind of hoping that like, well, Valerie's gonna be tied up, so most likely she's gonna be on the ground. So if I just blindly shoot for the room, I might hit Elsa, which is my target, you know. And
it's so funny.
Yeah,
there's a lot of guns in this movie actually. Elsa, it's presumed that Elsa owns several guns.
Like he just fucking like the shot. They don't give you a heads up that these hands just with guns come out of the holes in the wall. They don't tell you it's Orlik's hands. He just starts shooting.
I was utterly confused initially until the next scene when it's like, oh, I guess he saved her, and they're hanging out together now. And I think this is when he's like,
is this like the last goodbye, right, or something? Or because he proposes to her that they run away together, right? Something like that, or propose.
And she's like, no, I just found out that I am literally your brother, or I'm your sister. The constable is both of our dads.
Mm-hmm. Right, and
he's just like, it's not true, it's a lie.
Right, exactly, and we don't know if he's also lying, because like there's like other scenes that heavily imply that the constable is her father, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Later on, when we see at the end, right? So we don't know if he's lying just to get that dick wet, because that's what it kind of like feels like. It feels like he's just trying to get sex out of her. To be honest, It doesn't feel like he's not really doing this to be a good person. Like maybe, like, okay, here's my little fan theory. Maybe like, earlier on, or like before, like maybe he didn't know what Valerie looked like, before the start of the movie. And when he goes to steal her earrings, this is the first time.
AKA her virginity.
Yeah. He realizes how like beautiful she is, and that's when he realized, oh, I should probably save this girl because she will reward me with sex, right?
Yeah.
Like that's what I feel like might be why he does it, because like after that, that's when like I mentioned earlier, he sends her like the kind of incel letter. Where it's all like, damn, girl, we could have been happily ever after, but you had to go reject me. This is goodbye. All the
I actually just had like kind of a brain blast moment.
Mhm.
So you know how we keep seeing her eating these pearls that save her life?
Yeah.
And so what brought me to this like idea was the earrings I think are supposed to be virginity. I think they're supposed to represent virginity because Elsa makes a statement that her mother lost those earrings when she was 13. And
Oh, yeah.
so that's part one of my fan theory.
All right.
Part two is the pearls.
Mm-hmm.
The pearls are birth control.
Oh
Because birth
shit.
control came out in the 60s, I think 1960, and it was kind of like a big deal. And if you think about like the scenes where she's using birth control, it's like it's scenes where she's being like like she's being preyed on sexually, so it's a way of
Right.
saving herself from that. Like she's not having the ramifications of like having a child, like how the constable, but we're assuming the constable did with her mother,
Mm-hmm.
and made her mother have two children. I don't know. That's my crazy fan theory. I might be totally off base since it is based off a novel from the 40s.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, hey, you can reinterpret movies when you adapt them.
I mean, maybe the pearls weren't in the original novel. Maybe like the original novel was probably completely different for all we know. You know.
I really want to read it now.
Well, if you do read it, get me in on. Tell me what happens because I ain't reading that shit. I can't read. Um, okay, that being said, damn, that's really interesting. But the same, there's like other. I guess that could be like how the church is kind of very anti-birth control. Like the church is very anti anything related to sex, like anti condoms and also anti-birth control. You know, so I guess that's why like when like before she's about to like when the priest tries to like rape her, she takes one of the pearls. And at that moment, the priest is kind of like, "Oh no, what have you done?" And he just kind of leaves.
Yeah,
Right. So I guess that could be like a metaphor about like how the church feels about birth control, right?
it's really hard to like at least put myself back in that time because this was 1970, so it's only 10 years after. I mean, like maximum 10 years after the invention of birth control. So I don't know how like widespread it was, or if it was more of just like a cultural statement to put it in this movie. If it's, as I said, like this is just my uneducated reading of it, so I don't know. I just had that weird brain blast right now. Thought it'd be fun to share.
I feel like maybe communist countries did have birth control. I mean, I know a lot of them. I know like specifically Stalin was very anti-religion and he made everyone atheists, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's definitely. I mean, they definitely would have known about it at least, so it's something that they could insert into their film, just like theoretically.
Right. Right.
Okay, so
And then so after that, be after that, there's like another scene where like wasn't there? I think there was a scene beforehand. I can't remember which character specifically told Valerie that like the constable is like dying, and Valerie like feels bad for the constable, right?
yeah, he starts to get like really sympathetic towards her.
I mean, I think after she finds out that the constable could be her dad, she feels kind of like bad for the constable, right?
Yeah, and is this the scene when he fools her, or he kind of shapeshifts to looking like
he's young
her
again.
father,
Yeah.
and then she kind of falls for it, and then I thought he kills her in this scene, but I think she like spits out a bunch of pearls in the next scene, and she's clearly not dead, but she's like in a coffin, like underground, basically. She's not in a coffin, but she's laying in like a bed of apples, which apples are another symbol. She's constantly eating these small apples.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you know what the symbolism is with the apples? Because I'm not too sure. I thought it was maybe like maybe it's like a vampire garlic thing or something. But
yeah, I don't know. I mean, the obvious thing that comes to mind would be like Apple, like Adam and Eve, but that's just like nothing. Like I got nothing there. I think it's just kind of supposed to represent like, oh, her like, she's like fruit that is ripened, like because she's like her sexuality is like blossoming. But I don't know. That's just like kind of cheesy.
Before that, before there was like a scene where like Elsa, well, the young Elsa is confronting the constable, and like I think the constable tells them they're both gonna die unless they get Valerie, and then Elsa's like, oh shit, I killed Valerie, and then the constable's like, fuck, and the constable's like, I'm dying. Oh, he's like on the ground, like fucking wiggling around, and like Elsa leaves. I forget why she left, but I know she leaves like the room. What was that?
Yeah, this is where the constable confronts Valerie, and he's like, I can give you immortality. You just have to bring me Eaglet's still beating heart.
and
she's like, no.
Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna do that. Yeah, like she doesn't really fucking tempt it out. She doesn't fall into any of the tricks like Elsa does. Like
no, she really doesn't.
But and when the constable was like on the ground like dying, like oh wait, no, before that, doesn't Valerie steal like some chickens or something? She steals like a basket of something, right?
Oh yeah, because she heals him. She thinks she's healing him.
Yeah, she like bites
into taking advantage of her.
Yeah, she bites into like a chicken's neck and has like the chicken's blood in her mouth. We don't see it; it's all implied. But like, she has the chicken's blood in her mouth, and she like kind of like kisses him or spits in his mouth. We don't see it, but I guess it's implied that he kisses him to keep him like alive, right? And at first he like shapeshifts into his younger self, which we saw like earlier in the movie. And he's all like, "Oh, you saved me, Valerie," and then he's like, "Ha, psych!" And then like.
He goes right back to being gross and evil.
Yeah, exactly. And like, it's implied to bite on her neck or rape her. I'm not sure because she's unconscious, and that's when she wakes up in the coffin and like spits out the pearls that were in her mouth, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I
think like the next major scene. So this to me felt like almost a non sequitur. It was like Valerie just cheated death basically. And her next move is she goes to Hedvige, the woman who was supposedly married, or she was married to like the fat bastard guy.
Yeah.
And so she's like Valerie's talking to her, and she's like, ever since our marriage night, I've been wasting away. My energy's been going away because like he's
like Elsa.
The constable stealing her soul or whatever.
Was it the constable? I thought it was Elsa who did it.
Or Elsa was the one that.
I mean, they're absorbing her life energy or something, right?
Yeah, but there's one line that Valerie says that I loved. It felt so like Central European. She's like, "Oh, if you're feeling bad, Hedvige, you must eat hearty soups." She's like a babushka, pushing her food on.
Right.
But then the most shocking scene happened where they basically
they have sex.
Fuck.
Yeah, like I don't know what the age of consent is in Czech in the 70s, but this married woman has sex with this 13-year-old. We don't see it, but it's implied because they wake up in the morning and they're both like naked, and then Helvetica's like, "Oh, you cured me because I'm having." Yeah,
I think she says your kisses cured me, and yeah, she's good. Like she's totally saved now.
Right, exactly. Because she doesn't have. I think she doesn't have the vampire mark because earlier she shows Valerie like the vampire mark on her neck, right? And
and then it's gone afterwards.
Right, exactly. Was this before or after the constable
This was after. This was after all that. So I think I find this scene to be kind of weird. I think what it's supposed to imply is that Valerie is literally magical. Like there's no she definitely is the daughter of the constable, and she has powers, and the constable is trying to use her powers to give himself immortality.
Right. So maybe she's Valerie's some sort of anti-vampire.
Yeah, it's
weird. In a way, yeah, because it's kind of funny how basically earlier when remember when the priest said that the African lady committed the sin of cheating because this movie is anti Christian and anything opposite of the church is actually a good thing. This woman basically cheats her husband, and that's a good thing, right? Because she cheats with Valerie, right?
It saves her.
Yeah, that's what's cheating is what saved her, right? Which is why it's okay to be a homewrecker. Hashtag homewreckers. No, anyway. No, it's because she was in a loveless marriage, right? And Valerie gave her some love, and she's like, "Oh, that felt good. I'm better. I'm not a vampire anymore. Well, I'm not a fucking host to a vampire anymore."
Yeah.
Right. And then after, Yeah.
So do you remember the next scene is where the father, so we didn't actually mention a pretty important thing, is that after the father tried to rape Valerie, he ends up hanging himself
Oh
and dies.
yeah, that fucking scene. Yeah, yeah.
But he is, since he seems to be in league with the vampires, he is brought back to life.
Right.
And in this scene, the next scene,
he forgot the scene where he like wakes up in the coffin next to when Valerie wakes up in the coffin surrounded by the apples, and then like the priest is also in the coffin next to her, and he wakes up and he sees like Valerie also wearing like the little rat mask that like the constable was wearing to like kind of taunt the priest, and she's like eating some apples, which is I guess another scene that implies that Valerie also has like is some sort of like supernatural creature, just like the constable, right?
Yeah.
And that's when the priest is all like, "Oh, you're a witch, and then like leaves the scene, and then Valerie has the sex scene later, and then after that, the priest is like in the town square, being like, "This town has a witch. We need to purify this town," right?
They go from 0 to burning at the stake so quickly.
Oh yeah, that was very quick because Valerie kind of like, I thought Valerie was gonna try to stay hidden, but she like kind of like straight up admits being like, "No, you're a fucking liar," and it's like, well, everyone now clearly knows that Valerie's the witch, right? And they just put her on, and like Valerie could give like less of a shit when she's on the stake, like she doesn't care.
I love this. I love this like, so much. She's like taunting them like actively while they think they're burning her.
Mm-hmm.
But so what ends up happening is there's this other character that's really like, I don't think she says a single word, but she's a flower girl, and she like gives Valerie a flower while she's like, or she like is handing her a flower while she's being burned to death. And I don't know if this is like her saving her or whatever, but we see that Valerie is like totally fine after after her execution, and she just like goes back down to like the constable's like weird pleasure den.
The orgy. Wait, hold on. You forgot the scene where, like, so after like the flower girl, well, she's literally burning on the stake, but the flower girl still approaches her and gives her like a flower or something, and then Valerie eats another pearl, and
oh, that's right.
Yeah, I feel like it cuts to like a white dove being on the stake instead. So I guess it's implied that Valerie like shapeshift into a dove and flew away.
Huh.
Because later there's like a scene, and then right after that the scene where she's like in front of her house, but it's her and there's also like a dove there. So it's like, wait, what? Did she take the form? Did the dove fly her out, or like she took the form of the dove, but the dove's still there? So did the dove become its own like living being after it freed Valerie? Like I'm not too sure. All we know is that she did escape because she flew away, and that's when she gets the letter from Orlick, right?
Oh yeah, and this is basically, so I think this is like, I was really confused by this letter initially. He's like basically saying like, bring a carriage to the theater, and it was like something that she didn't end up doing.
Yeah,
but I think it all just like worked out in the end. Like
I remember there is a carriage later. There's like an empty carriage.
Yeah, there's actually like one more scene before that, so let's just do that scene really quick. So yeah, Valerie goes underground to where the constable like lives,
and like the little orgy that's happening, and the reoccurring band member characters are there too.
They're just playing while the constable is having sex with Elsa, and
he's like laughing it up. He's doing the yucks.
Yeah, and he ends up. So it's weird because one of the dudes there, just some random dude, is gonna murder him.
I think,
or try to murder him.
He's like insulted his masculinity or somehow. I'm not sure how, but it seems like he's insulted by the constable, and he's going up to the back of the constable to stab him with a knife. We never see him getting stabbed in the back, but it's implied that that's what happens. You know,
it was like something else happened too. It was I don't know. It was very weird.
Valerie sneaked into the place. Also, the flower girl was in that den too. Valerie sneaked in there, and when the constable puts down his cup of wine, Valerie puts a pearl in the wine, and then he drinks it.
It like kind of kills him, but it actually turns him into a polecat.
Yeah,
at least that's what I think.
Yeah, so a polecat is like, it's like a ferret. It's like a ferret creature.
Yeah, they're stinky ferrets apparently.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Which is
So
which is funny because like throughout the movie, like people would call the constable a polecat.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's just like saying like the worst insult, like you gross, disgusting
Your
monster ferret.
little fucking snake, you. Right?
Yeah,
Yeah, like they're comparing him to an animal as an insult, and then he actually gets turned into one, right?
yeah, and I think he runs away in that scene. I'm not sure if
He
he was actually there in that scene as a polecat, but
it
like in the very next scene, one of the like townies sees the polecat like attacking a chicken
mm-hmm.
and shoots it with a gun and kills it. I think they actually killed it. To me, it looked like they
I
actually
think yeah,
fucking
they
killed this
probably. I
animal.
felt like yeah, they probably did.
I mean, yeah, this is. I mean, that time period,
I
it wasn't uncommon for animal
yeah,
abuse
it
to take place
wasn't.
on camera.
Yeah, they did something very similar. They did something very similar in the movie Cannibal Holocaust, which came out in the 70s.
Yeah,
That movie,
I've seen that. That movie just is so. It made me sick to my stomach watching that shit.
that yeah, same here. But anyway, back to Valerie. Um, damn, some scenes like this whole movie is just like a bunch of moments that are like
Yeah.
edited together to make sense. But I keep like because you'll say a scene and then it's like, oh wait, but like two other scenes before that happened, and it's like it's not like that I forgot those scenes. It's that I just forgot in what order the scenes are, and
Yeah. It feels like a lot of like episodic moments, like you said. Like sometimes it's like there's so many times where she saves Egret or Egret saves her,
mm-hmm.
and or I say Egret, I meant to say Eaglet. I'm
Egret
thinking of
or like
Game of Thrones.
yeah. and,
um, yeah, but so
and
then we move on to. Oh, sorry, yeah.
and then after is after that is the scene where it's like they do this thing where it's like so we're like close to the end of the movie, and they do this thing where they like kind of remake a scene from from earlier in the movie because there's like a scene where like Valerie's like chilling in the kind of like living room dinner table area, and her grandma walks in and she's like, don't play with your food, Valerie. And then they recreate that scene again towards the end, but now it's like different, you know?
Yeah, and I think this is like right before or we actually the big part of the scene is we see the procession leave.
Mm-hmm.
Like we see them the missionaries leave the town, so it's kind of just like, all right, like the evil has been dealt with, it's been vanquished. Also, I can't believe we didn't mention until now, but the dog. Do you remember the dog?
Yeah, isn't like because it's implied to be the constable inside the carriage, right?
Yeah, and he has the dog again.
He just has like a dog.
He has this little lapdog throughout the whole movie. This is like a little white. I don't even know what kind of. It's this tiny little white lapdog, and yeah, we see the lapdog again. So it's assumed that the constable didn't actually die, and he leaves the town. But then once they leave, the whole like plan that Eaglet wanted her to do with bringing carriages and stuff. Maybe it did happen just off screen. Valerie's parents show up.
Oh yeah, wait. Before that scene though, her grandma dies, right? Because
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
yeah. She dies because I guess she just hasn't like because I think she technically reverted back to her older self because before this she was like wearing like a redhead wig and being all sexy like, but now then she reverted back to her like little cottage looking old grandma self, and she's like dying in her bed, and she's all like, "Oh Valerie, the thing is." So Orlick, yeah, he is your brother, and your parents, they're still alive, and you gotta go find them. And then Valerie's all like, oh yeah, I will, I'll do that, right? Something like that.
Yeah, I forgot all about this part.
Yeah, I forgot. And then right after that, her parents do show up, right? And like her mom is played by the same actress who plays the grandma.
Yes.
Right.
Also, they like fucking kiss. Like Valerie and her mom kiss so hard, it's creepy.
Yeah, they do kiss so hard. I was like, is this like a European thing, or it's like?
I don't think so. I think this is like a very creepy. I think this is kind of like because this precedes like the final scene of the movie.
Oh yeah, the final scene is
where
very wacky, but
yeah, like Valerie has like given up her connection to like any religion or like norms
to
of
reality
society.
itself, really.
Yeah.
Wait, but before that, like when we see her father who looks just like so when the constable, like earlier when the constable transforms to like his younger self, her father looks just like the constable's younger self, which goes more into the implying that the constable is her father. And then Valerie looks at him and he's like, have I seen you before? And then her father's all like, oh, you know, distant memories and whatnot, right? And then after that, her grandma who just died is actually still alive and comes outside the house to like greet her sister. And it's shot in a way that you can't, like, it's the same actress, right? But it's like shot in a way that they're not in this really in the scene at the same time, right? And and also there's like little cutaways to like, so the polecat, like someone like kind of like nailed the body to the wall of like the hen house or something. Right? Yeah, so it's just like kind of there making like weird noises or whatnot. You know what? I can't remember. Did the polecat get killed right after her parents showed up? I can't.
No, that was right before. Because there's a scene where Orlick looks over at the like nailed skin of the polecat on the wall. So it's supposed to kind of be like, we beat him, like we did it, we beat the bad guy.
But like, man, but he's like still around, right? And then
so that brings us to the final scene where we do see him, just like he's out in the fucking wilderness, like partying, making out, making love.
Yeah, because after that, does Orlick show? I feel like Orlick shows up one more time, doesn't he?
Well, she has like during like the weird ending montage, there's like parts where she's like we see Orlick with other women, and we see Orlick like beckoning her to him. I don't remember if he shows up. He's there when the parents arrive.
Okay, so I think Valerie gets in the carriage with her parents, and so does her grandma, and they go into the forest, and it's kind of like this might be a little fucking. Also, Orlick is there too in the carriage as well, because they all like hop off, and Orlick starts playing like the weird little guitar, and it's like this. It's like this weird little like all the characters of the movie are there too. They're in the forest and they're all chilling, playing music. So it's kind of like this is kind of like the you know, when in animated movies, like this used to be a big thing in the early 2000s, but they'd have like the end of the movie like party scene where it's all the characters of the movie and they're all dancing. They're doing the dance party. This is kind of like the dance party scene, but it's like a dream party.
Yeah, it's very, to me, like, I think in my notes are bacchanalian. Like, it just felt like a big, like, hedonistic fest where they're just drinking and partying and everyone's kind of having sex with each other.
These two girls, like, make out and they beckon Valerie to, like, come too, right? Because I think Valerie's, like, I think she is, like, lesbian, right? Technically, or bisexual.
I think she's bi, because she definitely was attracted to Orlick Egret.
Yeah, exactly. And the priest is there too, but he's locked inside the bird cage from earlier, right? And
I forgot about that.
Yeah, and he wants to like join in on the orgy, but they're all like, haha, nah, like they don't let him out.
You bastard.
Yeah, and the constable is like there too, like he's there like banging women and whatnot on the boat, and it's so
he's there. In, like, the form of her father, too.
Right, exactly. Actually, wait, I think, doesn't he switch back and forth or something? Or whatever?
Yeah, he does. We see him in a few different forms. So, it's just, the ending is very weird, and I'm gonna be honest, like, I don't really know how to interpret it.
Oh, because it's, okay, so I really do like the ending. So, how it ends...
I do, too.
How it ends is, like, they're in the forest, and there's a bed there, and Valerie goes up to the bed. Meanwhile, all the characters of the whole movie are circling around the bed, like they're making like a ring around her. Yeah. Right? And she's just like in bed. And she goes into the bed, and I'm rewatching it right now. Right, just
some like midsummer shit.
Yeah, this is some midsummer shit. Right? And so she's in bed and everyone's circling, and then it cuts. And she's asleep in the bed and everyone's gone. And it's clearly like later in the day because like the forest is a little bit darker, right? And then after that, like it transitions into white. and it says the end, and I'm like, I'm still trying to figure out what does that mean. Like,
I don't really know.
Like, I feel like it means that so what Valerie wants to do with her virginity is up to Valerie, right?
Yeah.
I feel like that's because the real bad guys are everybody else who wants control of her virginity. Everyone wants to like take it, like the constable really values like taking like Valerie's virginity to kind of like live forever, you know, and that may be like the constable is some sort of personification of the patriarchy, you know.
Yeah.
Right? And the relationship it has with like younger women. There's a couple of scenes where Valerie like feels bad for the constable that he's like this vampire that feeds off of like younger women, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And that feels very like a more nuanced like anti-patriarchy kind of movie, you know. Like he's like evil, but he doesn't.
He's like a product of his situation,
right? Like I mean, he's
the victim of circumstance.
I don't know if I want to call him too much of a circumstance because he basically created that whole environment. Like I think
That's true.
I think it's implied that the constable, like that house they live in, is like the constable's house. Like because so I think what happened in the past was that Valerie's grandma and Valerie's mom, they were like sisters, and the constable was I think originally with Valerie's grandma, but then he like ditched her for the sister and they ran off, right? I feel like that's what they implied, like they ran off together, right? And then the grandma raised Valerie by herself, and she lied to them saying that your mother died, right? And weren't they like kind of specific that her mother died during like childbirth or something, or?
I think it was kind of intentionally vague. No, she didn't die during childbirth because she did mention that her mother was 13. Like her mother. Wait, no, that doesn't make sense. Sorry,
her mother gave. Oh, wait, the mother gave birth to her at 13. I think they do say that. Which kind of makes sense like, because that goes with your birth control theory, because like the reason why she doesn't get pregnant is because she has like birth control, even though all these like guys are like fucking her.
Yeah, I just think overall it's really cool movie. Like it's just so cool to see like the weirdness of it, and like the ending finale scene is just so fantastical, and it feels like it did inspire a lot of other things.
Yeah, like if you go into the Wikipedia page, it says that the movie also inspired the movie The Company of Wolves, which I haven't seen. That came out in 1984. All right,
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, I might have to check that one out too. But yeah, this is it's very, very good movie. I liked it. I feel like on a rewatch, I'll pick up more things. You know. Yeah,
there's so much that like is revealed to you slowly during the movie that knowing from the beginning that the constable is her father and that she's magical kind of changes a lot.
Yeah, it does recontextualize like a lot of things, right? I was gonna say something. I feel like we probably missed a couple scenes because like a lot of it.
Yeah.
It's like there's a plot, but it's more like as a series of events, right? Not really too much of a plot, you know. No character really dies. Like okay, by the way, if you're listening, and every time we say orgy, we're kind of being a little facetious. Because, like, no one's really, like, fucking inserting their dick in anyone in this movie. I guess besides that one scene where, like, the Chad is banging that one chick by a tree, right? Like, obviously they fucking... But, like, besides that, like, every time we, like, say, oh, they're having sex, it's all kind of facetious. It's not really happening. A lot of it's, like, metaphorically, Valerie is, like, gets raped by a couple people, right? But I think maybe there's, like, a thing with, like once you get a girl pregnant, you kind of have control over her, right?
Yeah,
that seems to be the thing that they want, is to get Valerie pregnant. Like that's what, like, I feel like metaphorically, And I think that's a big thing why no one really wants to bang the grandma, because she can't get pregnant, right? So she's lost her value.
Mm-hmm.
She lost her value
Exactly,
to
yeah.
this bigger, like, patriarchal structure, right? What makes Valerie so valuable is that she can't get pregnant, which is why the pearls, or the birth control of the pearls, are like magic, and all the guys hate that. That always kind of works against them. Like, it's like the birth control that turns the constable into a ferret, right? Like,
Yeah.
birth control is kind of like how women take their control back from men, you know?
Yeah, totally.
And like,
That's a really cool way to interpret it, I think.
mm-hmm. Yeah, and I feel like it's pretty good. Very interesting themes, very like good message. Although, like, I mean, a lot of people. There's this one review on Letterboxd. I'll pull it up. You could, and I'll read it to you. And it's like kind of like, I wouldn't say a surface level interpretation, but it's a very much like a very like kind of gut reaction. Okay, wait, I'm gonna read this. Got this from Letterboxd. Ugh. On paper, the idea of a girl getting her first period and then finding herself in a fantasy land of vampire and witchcraft sounds like exactly the type of movie I would love. But the multiple sexy nude scenes of Valerie, along with the attempted rape scene, completely destroys the value of the film for me personally. I don't care how technically well made Valerie and her Week of Wonders is. I don't care that her mother was set supervising. I don't care that it was filmed almost 50 years ago. The sexualization of a 13-year-old girl is completely unnecessary and reprehensible. I'm so goddamn tired of male writers and directors ruining perfectly good stories with their sick sexual fantasies. So that's like someone, if you were to watch this movie and not kind of like how we're kind of like trying to understand visuals, aesthetics, and metaphor, that's like someone's like gut reaction. I know a couple of people who would probably have that same reaction if I were to recommend them this movie. Right?
Totally. I think it's kind of understandable.
I mean, I think it's a valid reaction. Like, is she sexualized in this movie? I feel like the characters themselves in the movie are sexualizing this 13-year-old, but the way it's shot is not to sexualize her.
Yeah.
Like, I don't feel like herself is getting sexualized, right? Like, you can watch other movies made during this time that they do sexualize girls, and, like, it's very obvious. Like, with this, I don't feel like they're really sexualizing her. I mean, yeah, I wouldn't say, if you're the kind of person who actively wants to see underage boob, there's something wrong with you, right? But...
Totally.
And with this movie, like, I feel like all the underage boob shots in this movie aren't, like, supposed to be, like, titillating. It's just that
titillating, yeah.
Yeah, it's just that she wears very like loose clothes, you know, like you mostly see her when she's like wearing her pajamas, right?
Yeah.
Or she's like I don't know if there's any scenes of herself bathing herself, but she's very
not like explicit ones.
Yeah, nothing explicit. I don't think it's anything explicit at all. I feel like a lot of people might overreact to like what they seen in this movie, you know. Yeah. I mean, I feel like this person is understandable from their take, but yeah, that's very that's a very surface level I guess interpretation.
All right, so I have to run now, so if you want to wrap it up.
Yeah, of course. You should okay, so yeah, this was us talking about Valerie and her Week of Wonders. Protus, you want to plug anything?
Yeah, I do a Jojo podcast called Joe KKK. Check it out.
Yeah, exactly. That's a very, very popular podcast. Highly recommend it. I haven't watched any episode, but I highly recommend it.
Thank you.
You know me, Cheesymanfredo. This channel used to be like a cheesy cast channel, but now it's kind of like whatever the kind of fucking podcast I want channel.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
It's more fun and exciting that way.
Yeah, exactly. We're going back, and yeah, you know, we'll have my link to all my stuff down there. I make a webcomic called VillainVerse. There'll be links to that down below. And yeah, thanks for checking out this episode, you guys. Until next time.